Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing the new Zac Farro album, Operator. Zac Farro is generally best known as the drummer from the rock band Paramore, who are a band that, as a teenager, I did go through quite the phase with. And to be fair, of all of the music that I was listening to back then, I think that they definitely hold up one of the best. And so, of course, because of the very long history I have of being a Paramore fan, at the very least, I'm always just a little bit interested whenever any of the members have solo material on the way. And despite this being Zac Farro's first album under his actual name, he is still absolutely no stranger to releasing solo material separately from the band, having released now 5 albums with the project Half Noise, most of which I actually really enjoy. And his debut album, Operator, with the name Zac Farro, is very similar to the kind of sound that you're used to expecting from Half Noise, just with the very lush and smooth production style, as well as, of course, absolutely amazing and super light-hearted and fun vocals, which overall just gives this project and many of Half Noise's projects in the past just a perfect summer kind of feel, which is evident on this album right away on the title track which opens the album. And I think particularly on this track, Zac Farro really showcases how great of a vocalist he is. Again, just with that super smooth and soft voice of his that sounds so good with the production style that's also on show. And as subtle as it is, I do just want to mention how much I love the acoustic guitar on this track. Only making a handful of appearances throughout the song, but still doing a great job every time it is there. And overall, I think for such a straightforward and simple pop song, I think it does an incredible job still opening the album, being nothing particularly mind-blowing, but just doing a good job at what it does. And then the following track, Second Chance, I think is mostly much of the same. However, already by this point, because it's such a simple and generally quite repetitive sound and style, it already is getting just a little bit boring, I think. Especially with this track somehow just feeling a lot less melodic and even more simple than the opening song, which really doesn't help its case for how repetitive it does feel. I do really like the very fuzzy and electronic bass on the song One, which is something that I really wish this album just had a little bit more of, because it is a really cool style that not only somehow works really well on this track, but is just generally something I do like to hear anyway. And I think I do just appreciate this song, again, as simple as it is, for just trying something new. And once again, just being a perfectly good pop song that is very well performed, even if it's not all that complex. Simple Actions absolutely has some of my favourite guitar work on the album, just being so funky and groovy. And of course, a sound that just matches the smooth production absolutely perfectly. I'm also a fan of the very prominent yacht rock influences on this track, with Steely Dan, of course, being a very obvious influence, especially with the very playful and light-hearted approach again to the vocals. My, I must admit, is a song that does actually frustrate me quite a bit, simply because I absolutely love the vocal harmonies as well as the way the vocals sound, as well as all around just great writing on this track. However, I just find that the song as one whole finished project is quite lacking in a way, especially just with how quickly and abruptly it ends, with it not really getting that much of a chance to explore everything it had the potential to. And I think, again, just arrangements and complexity wise, there's just not quite enough going on. And even as short as this song is, being only just over 2 minutes, I do just feel like a lot more could have been put in there, with it often feeling just quite empty and like there's just simply, like I said, not enough happening. Which, like I said, I think is quite a shame, because pretty much every other aspect of the song is still fantastic, mostly just again with the fantastic writing, and of course, even the instruments that are there do still sound incredible. I do really like the much more jazzy kind of sound on Gold Days, which does make it definitely one of the much more theatrical songs on the album, and especially with the way the vocals sound as well, being a unique style that again is a really cool idea, and I just wish that there were a bit more of it on the whole project. But I think, like many of the songs on the album, this one again suffers from just being too short, showing off a lot of really good and well executed ideas, but it just doesn't really give itself enough time to really explore each idea in all that much detail. Although I will say I do love the saxophone solo at the end of this song. That moment is incredible, I think being the only genuinely great idea that it manages to explore in full. All I really want now, I think, is mostly just a filler song. There are a few cool moments here and there. I will say I do love the guitar solo, but for the most part there really isn't a whole lot happening on this one that makes it all that interesting or memorable. But again, just another one of those perfectly good performances, production, but it's just really not all that interesting. Sunday Driving, however, is on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, being, I think, one of the most unique songs on the album, particularly with, again, just the production style, and there being quite a lot of cool sound effects thrown in there, and this also being another track with a slightly more jazzy kind of influence. And all of that combined with, again, just the super soft and smooth vocals, as weird of a combination as all of it is, it does actually work surprisingly well, and in the end, I think just makes it one of the most interesting songs on the whole project. I Need You, I think, is just a really good closing track with almost quite a sentimental kind of vibe to it. I really love how the piano on this track sounds, which, as good as it is on this track, definitely just does make me realize how much I wish it had more of a presence on the rest of the album. I think with that being quite a missed opportunity, especially on a lot of the tracks, like I said earlier, that do feel quite empty and just a bit lacking. If nothing else, at least it is used and used incredibly well on this track. And so I think that just the main thing with this album is, in a way, I think it feels more like a mixtape than an actual studio album. Just with it being so short and so simple, and just more of a collection of ideas than an actual complete project. Especially just with how there's very little continuity between the songs, with each one more focused on kind of showcasing an idea as opposed to really making an idea the focus of a song and really exploring it in all that much detail. Which I think, as much as it does hold this project back in some ways, it does at least somewhat just lay some groundworks for future Zac Farro solo projects, which I'm really hoping can build on a lot of these ideas and just make them into a much more coherent and complete studio album. And so for that reason, I'll be giving this project a 6 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.